Hey y'all, it's Sally Loftus with Loftus Partners. I'm a couple of minutes late for our live. I apologize. This outage, I don't even know what you call it, like global outage, where like anybody using Microsoft is down, is really like cramping my style. I know a lot of you have probably been impacted by it, and hopefully not in terrible ways. So anyways, thanks for your patience in me getting the book club started. So today, this is the book. I would love for you to buy this book on Amazon. It's called The Pay Equity Guide for Nonprofit Organizations. And it's really a workbook that you can use with your workplace, and you can, as an individual, just to learn more about pay equity. It's a really great resource for you. It's available on Amazon. And one day I will get around to doing the Kindle version and also the audiobook version. But for now, you can order the paper copy. It's $16.99. And I would love to, for today, so we're doing Pay Equity Book Club every Friday right now in 2024 through kind of mid-October. And I'm using each Friday to really kind of walk you through a portion of the book. And so last week, I talked about why I wrote the book. And this week, I want to kind of walk you through the introduction. So if you go into the book and you see the table of contents, which is here, we are going to go into the wait, what chapter, right? That's really the introduction. And so the introduction is really sharing how I got started into pay equity work. I've worked in human resources for the last 30 years, but kind of specifically in 2018, I had this opportunity where I was working at the time where a donor gave us a transformational endowment gift. And the donor and our executive director at the time wanted to use that for our staff and to do good things for our staff. And we were kind of in a situation of like, what do we do with this extra money? And for me, I really wanted to do something strategic. I didn't want to use this money, just kind of throw everything up on the wall to see what was going to stick, because I had been listening to employees for several years at that point and knew how meaningful it was to them and really how it impacted their day-to-day life, right? Is that I was hearing people saying, I just want to work at a place where I can pay my bills and be a part of something meaningful, right? It wasn't like people are like, I need to make $500,000 a year, every year for this role. People were just like, I just want to make a living wage and do work that changes the world for the better. So the introduction, kind of walks through some of that, and then really kind of gives an introduction. I will say I have this picture of me beside a Dolly Parton cutout. Love Dolly Parton. One of my heroes. I live in an area that's very near and dear to her heart, not that far away, about 2 hours away from her hometown. And I really love following Dolly Parton because she's an incredible businesswoman. The way she runs her business is very strategic and very much based on people's feedback. And so you think about, like, some people didn't even really track Dolly Parton until she gave $1 million to Moderna to help develop a vaccine, right? She's known a lot for her philanthropy, but one thing I appreciate is that she doesn't lose sight of the rural population. And that's one thing in this book that I really try to focus on, is that a lot of pay equity work is done at the leadership level, is done at the big city level, where really there's a lot of people who, are frontline workers, need to understand and have opportunities for pay equity. In addition, our rural populations need to have that as well. There's a myth out there that it's typically cheaper to live in rural areas. That may be true for some, not for everyone though, right? I live in the North Carolina mountains. I drive 45 minutes to the nearest Walmart. And what happens is when people live in rural areas, they actually have more expenses because we have less access to healthcare. We have to drive further to get places. So there's an increased transportation cost. There's an increased transportation cost to access maybe the healthcare. A lot of times I have to drive an hour or so to see a specialist. Also, we don't have as much access to technology. Like, I live in a county where about 40% of the people don't have access to good internet. Also, there's, there's also increased costs because, for instance, you may not have as many school options, or there may only be one school that your kid can go to, right? So there may be less childcare options. So rural living is not always less expensive. So I just encourage you to, explore that. But also in kind of this introduction to the book is that, I really ask the question, and I love asking this question in employee feedback sessions, which is, how do you know that you're being paid enough? So I encourage you to think about that, right? How do you know you're being paid enough? For me, I will say I own my own business. And so one is there's a certain amount of income I need to make to support our family. There's also a certain amount of income that I have to pay expenses for the business. I'm grateful that, I'm married to someone who can carry our benefits, right? But there's things like that. So there are a lot of things that go into people answering the question, how do you know you're being paid enough? Much less the value for what you bring to a job, right? The expertise, maybe the education, the certifications you have. You may be able to look. A lot of times people will say, I know I'm being paid enough if I go online and look at similar jobs and they're paying the same or less. It's really disheartening whenever you go online and see jobs and see that you're getting paid way less than other people at other companies doing the exact same thing. So that's something we kind of talk about in the introduction. Really encourage you to think about that and ask that question at your organization. It's really interesting. A couple of things I want to read out of this kind of first chapter, the introduction in this book, is that pay equity is an educational, transparent, and transformative process for all employees to receive the pay that the organization determines against similar positions across the sector. So pay equity is really, there are 4 phases that I'll talk about in the book. And one is that pay equity is an educational process. A lot of us don't understand pay structures, right? And so it is an education process on how salaries are determined and people understanding that. There's also a level of transparency, right? Pay transparency isn't just, posting the salary range on a job opening, and it isn't just everybody knowing what everybody makes, which I'm not a fan of that. But there's a lot of different levers within transparency that you can use to build trust in your organization and with your employees. And so contact me if you need help with that. Happy to hop on a 30-minute free consultation with you about that. The other piece is that it's transformative. It really is. The feedback I get whenever I do pay equity work is, people saying, this is the first time I feel valued at my job. This is the first time I feel heard. This is the first time I can see a pathway for me to stay with this organization for a long period of time. So, it's really huge work that can be done. And pay equity work takes more time and money probably than you want, but in the end, it does give you some financial stability. And maybe a bigger portion of that is, there's really high turnover right now and a labor shortage. Gallup just came out with a study in the last 2 weeks that 30% of turnover is related to compensation and benefits. So if you want to reduce your turnover by 30%, let's do some pay equity, compensation and benefits work together. And even if you're not ready necessarily for pay equity, but you just need compensation and benefits help, happy to work with you on that. And we really look at, kind of what are the needs there as well. Couple other things. This is the last little bit, but one is I love this image. My niece, Kristen, did this image, but this is an image of a pig. And just like at a barbecue restaurant, you see the different parts of the pig. This pig has some different parts in it. And it's really describing pay equity as a umbrella term, right? If you give the strict definition, it's typically pay equity is that equal pay for equal work within a certain role across gender. But pay equity is a lot bigger than that. It's connected to equal pay and transparency and cost of labor and cost of living and minimum wage and geography, and all those things. So I talk about this in the book and kind of use that image to describe those pieces as well. And then the last thing that I want to really kind of bring forward in today's book club is that community is essential for long-term success. And that's something that's really a life mantra, but it's especially true with pay equity. It's important to be in community with people because you need people that you can call up and be like, hey, do y'all negotiate yes or no, salaries, why or why not, like what's worked for you, what hasn't, just having that community. That's why we have the free Pay Equity Collective on the Loftus Partners website. You can join for free today. I encourage you to go straight to our website, loftuspartners.com. At the top, you will see a button that says Pay Equity Collective, and you can join the free version today. You just have to give your name and email address and get access to a lot of resources, and get monthly emails from me and things like that. They give you the resources to build community and do this work. And I hope you will join the Pay Equity Collective. There are 2 paid versions of it as well, where you're working directly with me. There's one that's if you're new into pay equity work, and then there's one if you've already done pay equity work and you're kind of doing the sustainability portion. So again, you can find all that information on our website. Go out and buy the book. Next week, we're going to talk about chapter 1, which is the history of pay equity. I hope you'll join me there. And thanks for being here today. Have an amazing weekend. Bye.